Hey YouTubers, it's Steve Robertson again, coming from Rescape, my YouTube channel that seeks to aid and benefit people by helping them be more aware or informed on their views of their fundamental perception of reality and what that is and how that can help and aid and hinder them in their relationships and life and daily work, and then also how that allows them to do and be things they did not know they could do or be, and how people, as they align their fundamental perception of reality with truth or what's actually there, how that then allows them to become approximating specimens of what a human being was intended to be, and then how large groups of people doing this can alter the course of history. So today is going to be on the natural state part 3. Just real quick, hopefully this will be a short one. Go recap. Basically, the natural state is being in a state of self-honesty, of brokenness, humility, of being open to being aware of who you really are and not putting on a show, to yourself. You can put on a show to other people to the extent where you're being polite and things like that, but there's a certain level of authenticity people have when they're in their natural state. On the first video, I said that the easiest way to explain what it means to be in the natural state is when you're going on a date and people tell you just to be yourself, and just that level of self-honesty. And and then the second video on natural state, I went to more about how that plays out, and then this one basically is the idea of, so you're in the natural state, and the first two videos talk about how you become the person you want to be, but then what also happens in the natural state is that in the natural state, when you maintain that alignment with yourself and knowing who you are, or becoming into a greater awareness of who you are and being honest with yourself, loving yourself, the good and the bad, then what happens is that you free yourself up, things that most people are going to be, applying energy to make themselves a certain way that they want to be. When you're honest with who you are in your natural state and you start becoming those ways by default, it's the desires that cause you to become that way. To be in your natural state, your spirit is continuously making decisions based off preferences of desires it has. Now, the reason that people in their natural state become who they are is because I believe that it is written in, as far as how living entities are formed, is that every living entity wants to be what it is. So, for example, you don't find pigs wanting to be humans, and humans don't want to be birds, and men don't want to be women, and women don't want to be men. And people, ethnicities tend to want to be the ethnicity they are. And so, and which actually kind of makes sense, because it's the things that we, on the fundamental level, things that we can't control. Like I can't change that I'm white. I can't change that I'm a guy. I can't change that I'm human. I can't change that I have freckles. That I grow facial hair. That all these things, like all these factual things about me, I can't change these things. But it also happens that all these things are what I want. Like I want to be, like, on the things that I can't change, I want those things. So then the extrapolation of that is, well, the things that I can become, if you can become one of 1,000 different things, then, and you choose one of them, and then and by that desire or preference in your natural state, you start growing into that thing. Did you become that thing because you wanted to be that thing, you chose to be that thing? Or is it the same thing as like me being white male with freckles, that also that one in the 1,000 things that I wanted to be? If I desire all the things that I am and can't change, maybe I'm desiring what I am and don't realize yet. So then one perspective to look at this is the idea of self-realization. But when you're in your natural state and your spirit's alive and it's making choices based off preferences and desires to become and to grow, the state of aliveness it's in has to be from the perspective that you're choosing. So when you start talking about realization, that may be true, and I believe it is true, from that perspective. But if you hold that perspective while choosing to go towards that state, you won't have that. The spirit won't activate. So, for example, if I choose that, if I desire that one out of the 1,000 different things, in reality it's an infinite different things. But if you have 1,000 things and I choose one of them, and I want to be that thing, like, let's say you want to be like Clint Eastwood in Outlaw Josie Wells, where he's got that stone stare and he doesn't say much, but everybody respects him, or something like that. Like a lot of guys like that kind of personality. Not a lot of people have that personality, but if you were honest in your natural state and you chose to have that personality because you thought it was cool or whatever, and that's your thing, and then at the same time you're like, well, I'm just choosing it because that's who I really am, and I'm just realizing myself in that state. Well, now you've just taken out the whole idea of choice. So the spirit's continuously choosing. Like, you have to grow and to be alive, you have to continually making choices, and so based off preference and desire. So if you can, then the correct way to perceive it, as far as the realization point, is to become something. Like, you want to be a father, so you consider yourself, the spirit starts forming the shape of a father, and then miraculously now you have kids, and then you can look back and be like, well, I've realized that I'm a father, or something like that. But if you did that before it took place, it wouldn't make sense, because you're not. You don't even, let's say you don't even have a girlfriend yet. Like, how does that even make sense? You have to make these choices. So, or like, oh, I was always like the Clint Eastwood guy. I just had to live through these life experiences to gain the confidence to become like that. You can say that after the fact, but beforehand you can't see it that way. You really have to see it as a journey of like, what do you want? And like, if you're making choices based off preferences, then you're searching for things. And if you're searching for things based on what you find, or like, let's say there's something that you don't even know if it exists, so you ask God for it, and then you start searching for it, and then you find it, and then you grow towards that thing, all of which has to be in the natural state. Then and then you can say, oh, I was just realized to it, but like, how could you realize something that you didn't even know to ask for to begin with? So it's like, oh, well, God caused me to ask for it, but there's just a lot of different ways when you start analyzing it and like critically thinking about it, and like trying to like store it in different folders or different frames of references and things like that. It takes away, basically what that is you're not in your natural state anymore once you start thinking about it like that. Like, it's very, the more simple it is, the more alive your spirit becomes, the more easier it is. And basically is that you are honest with yourself and who you are honest with what you want, you don't judge yourself based on what you want, and you try to figure it out, and then you go and you pursue it. Because if the same thing happens too, is your natural state and you want something but you don't think you should want it, well, then the spirit gets cut off. Or if you want something you don't think it exists, then the spirit gets cut off. Or if you want something but you don't think you can obtain it, because you're not skilled enough, well, the spirit immediately becomes not skilled enough, because that's what you're believing. Or, oh, well, if I could have it, then everybody would have it, so the spirit gets cut off. So you literally has to get to the point, like with little children, when they want something, you have to tell them they can't have it. A child's default assumption when it wants something is that it can have it. So, and that wasn't supposed to go away. So if you want something, you just take the heart and mind of a child, in God, in your natural state. You want something, you ask for it. And then it's not that you expect him to give it to you, because if you make the choice to expect it, to receive it, then you're also considering the fact that maybe he won't give it to you. But a child assumes that its mom and dad is going to provide it with food. It doesn't. It's like, oh, I better expect my mom and dad to provide me with food, otherwise they might not provide me with food. Because again, you're out of your natural state at that point if you consider that. So again, it's back to simplicity, back to the mind, heart, mind of a child, back to literally like, what do you want? Go get it. How do you get it? You ask for it. And then what happens? Well, does he give it to you? Well, no. Then you search for it. And then what happens? Then you're probably going to be interacting with people. But in all these steps, the more simple you can make it, the better. It's not about realizing. It's not about doing it for this reason or that reason. It's literally, it can just be like, this is what I want to do. It's like, well, why do you want to do it? Like, why not? And you don't judge yourself, and you don't say you can't do it. You don't say it's too extreme. And really, there's that level of trust there. If it's based off childlike simplicity, there's going to be that trust that you won't even be aware it's there, because the only thing that you're conscious of is what the immediacy of the situation is, and that's you're obtaining what you want. So anyway, all these things can only be found in the natural state. All these things, for what I'm saying in this video, can only be found in God in the natural state. I think in the first video, I laid down the assumption that the natural state can only be maintained or found by God leading you there, because of the level of brokenness, humility it takes to maintain. And when you take things like dream, like dreams really do come true or whatever. Like, I read somewhere that right before you fall asleep or something like that, like when your mind's in the dream state, like the parts of your brain that are activating are the parts of the brain that activate when you plan things. So I don't know, that's probably, that may not be 100% correct or even correct at all, but there was a link there I remember reading. It's like talking about like that made me think like, well, if the part of your brain that dreams is linked up with the part of your brain that's supposed to go out and actually accomplish what you're dreaming, then why do people immediately assume that dreams are, fantasy, when it's written into our physiology that what we're dreaming we should also be pursuing realistically, like factually? And then where did the disconnect happen there? And I believe the disconnect happened when we stopped being honest with ourselves, and the disconnect happened when we stopped acting out of simplicity. Made it too complicated. So anyway, that's Natural State Part 3. If you have any questions, post in the comments. And I will see you guys next week. Thanks. Bye.